everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm sure there will be people rolling in. I wanted to welcome you to Francis Parker School. I'm Teresa Collins, and in addition to being on the faculty here, I'm the department chair for the upper school. And for those of you who are new to the building, thank you especially for coming to our final Night Views event of the spring. Night Views is a series that welcomes anyone who wants to come to some great events. So this spring's programs have been particularly stellar, from the poet Nikki Finney to our school's Shakespeare team to a screening of the film Good Morning Mission Hill and a conversation with Paul Tuff about how children succeed to Tonight with Sam Chaltain. Part of what makes Parker a special place is that we seek to bring the outside in and the inside out, and it is in that spirit that I like to introduce my friend, Sam Chaltain, who has come in from DC this evening to read from and talk with us about his new book. Sam is, and he has been since I met him in high school, a good guy who, in at least one case, helped me get a truth to light, much in the same way that he brings truths to light in his writing about education. He helped me find a way to tell my story to our history teacher and to help me set the record straight. You probably don't remember. But Mr. Olson had handed back an exam, and on the exam, there was a short answer question where we had to explain exactly how the Dresden bombing worked, the fire attacks. And the thing is, I don't remember a lot about that class, but I remember this. Sam was in it. We sat next to each other in the second row in front of green chalkboard. And I knew that I nailed the question about the Dresden bombing. And so I got my paper back from Mr. Olson, and it was marked wrong. It was the first question on the test. I'll never forget it. You all know how it looks when a teacher just slashes through an exam, and it's incorrect, and it was a red felt tip slash, maybe with like a one-word comment. But I had it right, and I showed it to Sam, and Sam said that it was right, and that I should tell Mr. Olson. And so I did, and it was hard, and I remember my voice was shaking, because Mr. Olson was a really nice guy, but I was essentially telling him that he, the teacher, had gotten something wrong. But I did it, and it helped me because telling my story to Mr. Olson started a conversation that revealed my understanding in an even deeper way than what I had written on the test. And that's what learning can be like sometimes: complicated, clouded by misperception. Or maybe Mr. Olson was just really tired of grading papers and just decided to blast right through without reading. But with connection and conversation, clarity can be reached. And Sam's work is all about polishing those important facets of the educational experience in America. In Sam's work on schools and education, his greatest strength is helping folks to see that where there's something wrong, it's within our power to make it right. He's also particularly excellent at heralding what is already right in American schools. More than anything else, Sam believes in the power of schools to shape the lives of the teachers and the students in them, the parents who entrust their kids to them, and Sam believes in the power of schools to help shape our very democracy itself. In his new book, Sam masterfully, beautifully tells the story of two schools in Washington, D.C. where he lives, and he raises important questions about the power and peril of school choice. Our school is an important work for those of us who care about students because in it, Sam writes about the inside of schools in ways that reveal some essential truths about teaching, learning, and choice. As Sir Ken Robinson notes in his foreword, what our school shows with passion and precision is that education is about real people leading real lives in real places. If school doesn't engage them, it doesn't work, no matter what the accountants and policymakers may say. That's what this book is really about and why it's so important for anyone who genuinely cares about schools, communities, and their children. Indeed, in Sam's own words, his project with this book is compelling. I have written our school because I believe that before we can answer these questions, we must put a human face on the modern landscape of teaching and learning. We must experience modern American schooling as today's teachers, students, and families do. And we must pay close attention to our changing notions of community, democracy, and choice. Nothing could hit closer to the mark of what seems to be woefully missing in many conversations about schools, the faces and experiences of the teachers and students who spend their days in the classrooms and hallways of all of our school communities. Sam's book helps the reader see the landscape that he seeks through his careful, gorgeously written study of life in the Mundo Verde and Bancroft schools. And he is, of course, here to read. So without any further ado, please welcome to the podium my friend, classmate, and colleague, Sam Chaltain.
Thanks, Teresa. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi. That's definitely the first time I've been introduced by a former high school classmate. So not surprisingly, I think it's safe to say that's the nicest and most interesting introduction that I've ever had. Thank you so much, Teresa, for setting the stage, and thanks to all of you for coming. You obviously know that I went to high school here, Evanston Township, class of '88. I'm not from here. I actually grew up in New Hampshire, so it's not fully coming home, but it is a home to me. So it's especially exciting as this book goes and I'm visiting different parts of the country to be in a room where I can be introduced by a former classmate, where a former student of mine from Brooklyn is now here teaching in Chicago, where there's friends and family and folks that are on the front lines doing work, where there are young people in the room, folks that are still in school and starting to think about the work that they'll be doing in their own lives. So thanks to everybody for coming. So our school is a story about a year in the life of two schools and of the people whose lives intersect there. But because those two schools happen to be a charter school opening its doors for the first time and a neighborhood school that first opened its doors in 1924 in the nation's capital, it's about a lot more than that. It's, in fact, most of the issues it touches on are really the most pressing issues of the day, both nationally and with really passionately felt white-hot local contexts in places like DC and Chicago and lots of other places. So it's also a book about school choice and school reform and testing and teacher evaluation and gentrification and our changing notions of community. So needless to say, that's a lot to try to talk about in one book. It's especially a lot to try to talk about in 1 hour, but we're going to try, okay? So here's what I'm thinking. So what I want to do is I want to share 3 short readings from the book as a way to try to give you a feel for the story and to maybe provide some specific context to these other issues and give you a little bit of a sense of what I think about those things, and then let your questions determine how we spend the rest of the time together. Does that sound good? All right. So the first thing I should say is just a little bit of context about DC. So I obviously wrote this book to try to have an appeal to folks all over the country because this issue, school choice, this is like the brave new world of modern American school reform. In just about every major American city, there's some level of experimentation with this idea. And so I first started thinking about writing this book 3 years ago when, not coincidentally, my wife and I were, our oldest son, Leo, was just nearing school age. DC has universal preschool, so most kids in DC start at 3. And most of our friends were at a similar point. And one of the things that I noticed is, in DC at least, lots of really smart, motivated parents had absolutely no idea how to choose a school for their kid. And I thought, that's interesting, and that's kind of a major problem if what you're trying to unleash is a more educated consumer who is patrolling the marketplace and ultimately making a decision that's in the best interest of their kid, and based on the decision that they're making is therefore driving decisions that are making. If people don't even understand why they're choosing a school and what they should be looking for, then the house of cards comes tumbling down. But what I also realized is that